Hello everyone, it's Red Effect. Today we will take a look at one of the most iconic tanks in history, the M4 Sherman, into service in the Red Army during World War II. The first Land-Lease tanks arrived in October 1941, which consisted of Matilda, Valentin and M3 Stuart tanks. Matilda had similar armor to Soviet heavy tank, the KV-1, but its firepower was far worse. On top of that, it was designed to cross deserts, and not snow and ice. Red Army noted that even 30 centimeters of snow would drive Matilda to a halt. Valentin was preferred since it was lighter and more maneuverable. The firepower was also worse than what Soviets had at the time, but later tanks that arrived were armed with more powerful 6-pounder guns, which made Valentin a lot more popular. M3 Stuart was well accepted, since its performance was superior to the Soviet light tanks of the time. Red Army liked it and demanded more tanks from US, but they didn't get really what they hoped for. Next tank to come from US was the M3 Lee medium tank. The US tankers didn't really like the tank, so US hoped that Red Army will have high regards for it, but in short, they didn't. The report said that the design was not modern. Tank was way too tall and had vertical side armor plates, which were very bad for protection for such a big tank. The rubber block tracks were very prone to sliding during winter. Engine didn't operate as it should have, and the overall design was mocked. They hated the tank so much they gave it a nickname, the Grave for Seven Brothers. Only thing proved good on the tank was the 75mm gun, which in some cases proved superior to the Soviet 76mm gun on T-34. Soviets were highly displeased with the M3 Lee, so they demanded a new tank, preferably armed with the 75mm gun like the M3 was. So they got what they wanted, the M4 Sherman. US didn't want to risk another engine problems, so they sent M4A2 Shermans, which had new diesel engines, which were very liked later by their crews. The first batch of 36 M4A2 Shermans arrived to Soviet Union in September 1942. The first M4A2 in Soviet service served with the 5th Guards Tank Brigade and 563rd Separate Tank Battalion. Red Army nicknamed M4A2 Emcha, a contraction for M4. Two of early versions of M4A4 Sherman were sent for testing purposes, but again, the engine was not accepted, so no further shipment was deployed. Red Army did indeed like the Sherman. M4 saw action in late 1942, as well as Kursk battle in summer of 1943. Although liked, it did have issues. The report from the 5th Guards Tank Brigade on October the 23rd, 1943 commented that due to its high speed, M4A2 tank is very convenient for exploitation and offers great maneuverability. Armament is consistent with its design and it had fragmentation and armor-piercing shells with very high penetration. The 75mm gun and 2 Browning machine guns are trouble-free. Its disadvantages include the great height, making it a bigger target on the battlefield. Armor, despite the greater thickness, is substandard. There were cases when it was penetrated by an anti-tank rifle at a distance of 80 meters. In addition, there were a number of cases where U-87, while bombing the tanks, penetrated the side armor and turret armor with 20mm cannon fire, resulting in crew casualties. Compared with the T-34, the M4A2 is easier to operate and more durable when making long marches, as the motors do not require frequent adjustment. In combat, these tanks are working well. While T-34 was regarded as having better armor, firepower and mobility, its quality declined since the focus was on numbers, so the average operational range of T-34 was around 300 km before the breakdown. During the tests in 1943, only 10% of T-34s passed the trials, so in late 1943 and early 1944 quality started improving, but Sherman still had a better operational range, which was important for the offensive of Red Army. But M4, like M3, had rubber block tracks, which were prone to sliding, which was also noticed by US tankers during the Ardennes battle. Red Army tankers improvised by putting barbed wire, bolts or similar materials over the tracks to increase friction. The production 75mm M4A2 ended in May 1944, and Red Army received around 1800 of those tanks. New M4A2 entered production with a long 76mm gun, a new enlarged turret. This type started arriving in late 1944, although some sources even claim as early as January of 1944. First known combat was in December 1944. Since USSR started producing new tanks in 1944, such as T-34-85 and IS-2, the new Sherman was like a cherry on top. In January 1945, the M4A2 production shifted from VVS, vertical volute suspension, to the improved HVSS, horizontal volute suspension system. Red Army received 2073 M4A2-76 tanks, out of which 460 were the late HVSS models, but it is unclear if those late models saw any combat. If they did, it was probably in the August offensive on Manchuria against Japan, since 250 of them were deployed in Far East during that time. That's it, thanks for watching. If you think I made a mistake somewhere, feel free to correct me in the comment section down below. And I will see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.